In April 2024, European regulators pulled the legal tool that was supposed to help small shipping companies band together and compete against the giants. Their own review found it wasn't working. 14 months later, the giants themselves had regrouped into three enormous alliances, and today those three groups control more than 80% of the ships carrying goods across the world's busiest ocean routes. Nobody broke a law, nobody needed to. Every phone case, every couch, every bag of coffee that crosses an ocean to reach you rides inside a metal box on one of their ships. And for the last 2 years, three groups of companies that are legally not allowed to talk to each other about price have been rearranging the entire chessboard of global trade without a single regulator stopping them. Here's what's strange. The rule that got pulled wasn't protecting the big alliances, it was protecting everyone else from them. So why did killing it make the big players bigger? Here's what's stranger. The single largest shipping company on the planet looked at this new landscape and refused to join any of the three groups. It's betting it can beat a cartel by staying alone. And here's the part almost nobody explains, right? These companies aren't fixing prices. That would be illegal, and everyone knows it. What they're doing is legal, coordinated, and somehow moves the price of nearly everything anyway. Right now, in 2026, ocean freight runs through three main groups. Ocean Alliance is the oldest survivor. CMA, CGM, Costco, Evergreen, and OOCL locked their partnership in for 5 more years, through 2032, before any of this reshuffling even started. It's the biggest of the three by capacity, close to 30% of the major trade lanes, and it didn't have to move a single extra ship to win this round. Jiminy Cooperation is the new arrival. Maersk and Hapag-Lloyd, two carriers that used to run in completely separate groups, merged their networks into a hub-and-spoke system built around one promise: ships that actually arrive when they say they will. Between them, they operate roughly 340 vessels and about 3,700,000 containers worth of space spread across 57 services. In its first year, Gemini grew faster than either of the other two, gaining ground on the Asia to Europe and transatlantic trades every quarter regulators have measured it. Premier Alliance is what's left standing. When Hapag-Lloyd walked out to join Maersk, it left its old partners ONE, HMM, and Yang Ming without their biggest member. They didn't dissolve. They rebranded, signed a new 5-year agreement, and kept sailing. Three groups, one set of decisions about which ships go where. Combined, they're now moving more than 80% of everything shipped between Asia, Europe, and North America. Then there's the one company that isn't in any of these pictures at all. MSC used to be locked into an alliance with Maersk, the two of them running the biggest partnership on the water. When that partnership ended, MSC didn't join a replacement. It walked away from every alliance and now runs as the largest single shipping company on Earth, alone on its own fleet, its own schedule, its own bet. It's not fully isolated. It still signs narrower deals, sharing space with Premier Alliance on Asia to Europe routes and with a smaller carrier on Asia to America routes, just enough to patch the gaps a fleet that size can't cover by itself. But the strategy is the opposite of everyone else's. While three groups are consolidating into scale, the biggest player in the industry is betting that owning enough ships means it never has to share the room. Nobody knows yet if that bet wins. What it does prove is that even the largest company in this industry didn't think going it alone was crazy. It thought the alliances were the risk. Here's the part that explains all of it, and it's the reason none of this shows up as an antitrust case. A vessel sharing agreement doesn't fix a price, it fixes a schedule. Carriers inside one of these three groups agree on which ships sail which route, how often, and how much space exists on each one. Every member still sells that space under its own name, its own sales team, its own rate sheet. On paper, they're competitors. But space is the only thing that actually sets an ocean freight rate. If a group of carriers controls how many containers can physically move between Shanghai and Rotterdam in a given week, they've already decided the ceiling on how low any of their independent prices can go without a single conversation about price ever happening. When a route gets too dangerous to sail and ships start rerouting around Africa instead, all three alliances lose capacity on the same trade lane at almost the same moment, and rates jump everywhere at once. Not because anyone called anyone, because the ships were already sharing the same math. That is the entire trick: coordinate the ships and the price coordinates itself. So back to the regulators. When the EU let the small carrier exemption expire, the headline made it sound like a crackdown on alliances. It wasn't quite. The rule that expired mainly protected smaller cooperation deals, agreements the review found weren't even helping smaller carriers compete in the first place. The Big Three didn't need that specific rule. They just moved their justification to a broader general competition framework that still allows this kind of capacity sharing and kept operating. Britain looked at doing the same thing the EU did, reviewed it, and in the end decided not to change its own version either. The United States regulates this differently again, through its own Maritime Commission rules, which never required the same exemption to begin with. 3 different governments, 3 different rulebooks, and the same 3 shipping groups sailing under all of them without missing a service. Next time a choke point closes, a canal, a strait, a war zone that ships have to route around, watch how fast the price of shipping a container jumps and how identical that jump looks across companies that are legally forbidden from talking to each other about price. They don't need to talk. 3 groups already share the ships, the schedules, and the math that decides what the empty space on board is worth. The next disruption won't require a single phone call between competitors. The system is already built to move together.